data-driven employer branding. Let's hear more about that now from our panelists, from our discussion we're about to hear right now. And the person that's going to shape this discussion certainly in the right way right now is from Infostud, Isidora Maksimović Stanković. Isidora.
Hi, Peter. Good to see you again.
How are you doing? Doing? Where are you right now? I wonder where you are.
Yeah, I'm at home. I was supposed to be at the office, but I got some health issues. But that's not going to stop me to be here today, obviously.
Nothing's going to stop you, exactly. Isidora. Nothing ever does. Right. Isidora, listen, I'm going to leave it up to you. Hopefully we'll get some questions at the end. If we don't, that's still okay as well. If we do, I'll pop back and we'll have this question exchange at the end. How does that sound?
Sure thing. Good. Thank you.
Over to you.
All right. Thanks. All right. Am I supposed to see my panelists or should I start before? Can someone just give me perfect. All right. These are my people for the day. All right. Before I make this introduction, let me just say how it's good to be here again. I'm really excited. This is my third year at HR Week. So if we could all give a virtual round of applause to the HR World Organization for hosting this and giving us another HR conference. It's really, you've done an amazing job. So let me just make a quick introduction on my side. My name is Isidora, and I work as Employer Branding Development Specialist at Infostud, which means that I work with a lot of good smart people to create services that can help companies overcome obstacles when it comes to their employment. And we've chosen this topic, data-driven employer branding, because as a leader in Serbia, we hear so many questions about what do candidates think about me? How do I use this information? What's my next step? What do my competitors do? So I gathered some experts on this topic today. Hopefully we will give you just an insight of what you can do with the data that you gather and how to do that. So let me just make a quick introduction of all of them and start with the ladies. So we have Ines Oštrić. Ines is a regionally recruitment and employer branding manager at L'Oreal, in charge of Adria Balkan countries. She's creating and implementing employer branding strategies for several diverse markets, making sure that L'Oreal identifies and leverages on its existing strengths, as well as communicates them to relevant talent in an engaging way. So Ines, welcome, and thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we'll hear from you. I like this, the last part, engaging way, which is really important. And now we move on to Gloria Benedetti. She is the employer branding advisor for the Iberian Peninsula at Universum. Gloria has an international professional experience in business strategy and development. She joined Universum to support and foster the market with the same approach that distinguishes Universum, using the extensive database and lengthy experience to help companies understand, attract, and retain the talent they need to succeed. Gloria, thank you for being here and welcome. And now Mattias at the end. Mattias Holmberg is working for the global employer branding leader Universum as head of partnerships. Mattias has over 5 years of experience in the field of employer branding, being an integral part of the Employer Branding Academy team and the global marketing team, currently overseeing Universum's strategic partnerships globally. Mattias, thank you for being here and welcome.
Thank you so much, Isidora, for that beautiful introduction.
You're welcome. All right, so let's just, because we only have over 30 minutes, more or less, and this is a topic that we could probably discuss about for hours. Mattias, could you maybe give us a quick overview of global trends in employer branding currently? What's going on in the world? You, coming from Universum, could know that more than us at the moment.
Absolutely. For those of you who are not familiar with Universum, we are a global leader in data-driven employee branding, and we produce a lot of different insights and research on HR-related topics that are interesting for companies globally. And I will talk a little bit about a couple of trends that comes from two of our different sort of research, which is our Employer Branding Now survey and our world's most attractive employers. And in these reports, we gain a lot of insights into, what the talent wants and what is the latest in terms of what employers need to look at, etc. So, for instance, I will mention 3 different things. And one is the increased focus on offering flexible working conditions these days, and that work-life balance accelerates. And everybody knows, that we are coming out of the pandemic. We're going back to normal and everything. However, as people have sort of been adjusted to work from home, they are demanding a lot of flexibility. So a year ago, we could see that all of the tech companies globally were actually offering people to work from home all the time, wherever they were. But as we are going into this year, when things are turning back to normal, we see that more and more sort of leaders actually demand that people come back to the office. However, that is not always what the talent wants. So finding that right balance between sort of working from the office, working from home will be a pressing need that companies will have to deal with globally. It's also a very interesting market. Currently, we have record talent shortages in most markets around the world. And as we know, the market has been candidate-driven for the past year. However, as we're going into uncertain times, we can see, and we all have read the news, right? I mean, there are companies who are downsizing, and there are people that stay out of jobs, etc., and so on. So as companies are pulling back on hiring, this is also an opportunity for companies to regain more control in terms of the employer-employee relationship, because currently there's been that talent have actually been able to more or less demand whatever they want from the employer. So we have seen inflated employer promises to attract the right talent because there's talent shortages and companies really, really need them. And we expect for 2023 that we will return to a more balanced employment deals system, meaning that the power will be in the hands of the employer rather than the sort of talent and employees moving forward. And the last one is that since most companies is expecting a harder hiring environment, and therefore we are seeing a rise of the importance of employer branding naturally. Standing out in a market where there is talent shortages, while on the same time balancing the employment deal requires a good employment promise. So the employer value proposition that we talk a lot about at Universum will be even more important going forward. You have to stand out from the competition.
Is there a way to get EVP to be more important than it has been for the past years?
Yes, I'd say this: when it comes to your employer value proposition and what we teach in the Employer Branding Academy, it's actually, the core is that you need to be true and authentic, meaning that you shouldn't just talk about things because the talent, expects it, or that's what the talent wants to hear, basically. So when you create your employer value proposition, it needs to reflect the reality of your company. So don't go out and say and make promises that you can't keep, because then the employee experience will be really bad, and that will affect your branding of your company, basically.
Thank you. That sounds like employer branding 101, but still for some companies it's really difficult to grasp on that. But yeah, we'll get there. I'm positive.
We'll get there.
Yeah. Gloria, now hearing this, I like how we were all nodding while Mattias was telling about this war, so-called, between companies and talent. So based on your experience, is there a success story Universum was a part of where you indeed use the data to build and implement EB strategy? And what are your just key takeaways from that case?
Of course. First of all, thank you for inviting us, and it is a pleasure to be here and to represent Universum today. I'm working, as you said, as an employer branding advisor and key account manager for the Iberian Peninsula. So I have plenty of examples where that have been more successful and some that haven't been successful. But that's exactly what data helps you measure, whether you're successful or not, whether you should reiterate the strategy, reevaluate it, and adjust it according to the needs. In Universum, we do three major we deal with three major aspects of the employer branding journey, from the data collection and the analysis to the advisory and the consulting activities more related to the strategic aspects, until the actual activation of campaigns and of the communication of the companies. And we've recently structured that method. We've always used it, but we've structured it, which is called smart recruitment marketing, that helps companies achieve specific objectives thanks to the data. How? Basically, we take all of the data we have gathered on the specific talent group that the company is looking to attract, and we use it to create social media content that is attractive to the talent, but it also that helps the company respond to the need that it has. And we also use the same data to tailor to target on the channels the specific talent we're looking to acquire. Just to gather a bit of the interest of the audience, I will talk numbers now to understand how successful this campaign was. And I'm going to read them because I don't want to make any sort of mistake in this. The specific campaign that I'm going to showcase you in a second has received 205,000 swipe ups. It has been displayed 3.4 million times in 13 countries. And it has got Unilever Gulf, which is the company we've worked this campaign with, 11,757 direct applicants. Which is incredible numbers. Yeah. Of course, we're talking about a major company that is renowned, so it definitely helps. But the idea behind the way we structured this specific campaign was exactly what I've just introduced. Taking the data, understanding who our target is, create the content, build the content based on what the talent want to hear. That is, of course, as Mattias said, relevant and true within the company. We have created the script and sent it over to several ambassadors inside Unilever that were just supposed to record short video and snippets of them as if they were recruiting new talents. And then we gather all of this video input, did some smaller adjustments, and showcased it in three major platforms, which were Instagram, Facebook, and Snapchat, targeting this thanks to our proprietary data, because this is something also that we leverage at Universum. Not only the fact that we gather data now, but we've been gathering data for more than 30 years now. And this helps us reduce the waste when we go segmenting a specific campaign. As the number showed, this has been a really, really successful campaign for us that lasted 8 weeks and that has been nominated on several prizes. I could talk about this for long. I don't know how much time is dedicated to this, but I'd be happy to.
No, of course. Yeah, thank you for sharing this. I'm sure our audience probably has so many questions about this, and maybe we can have just a designated webinar talking about this at some point. But for this time, I think this is enough to scratch the surface and just give the audience some insights about what you guys have been doing with companies that has been successful. We'll probably have some time to hear about not so successful stories, but let's get over to Ines. I know she has some various experiences about using data in employer branding. So Ines, L'Oreal has done some great progress in employer branding, and Infostud can see that happening in Serbia as well. What was the moment you realized now or never is the time to start using this data, not this, just data in general, and why and how did you do it? I know
Well, first of all,
we can talk about it for hours.
yes,
but
of course. I'll try to sum it up, and of course to help maybe the companies that are struggling with this now or never. First of all, I have to say that when I joined L'Oreal 5 years ago, and of course learning about the apps and the ways of working, I was impressed how data-driven the company is. So really working as a global leader, you really need to be innovative, you need to push the boundaries, and of course you need to base your decisions on solid data. For us, data is incorporated in every segment of our business. Of course, our products having its scientific research behind it, and of course, the data that supports it. But as well, we have our consumer insights department that helps the products to develop and to find out who their consumers are. But as well, we need to do it in every aspect, including HR. And this is the difficult part because sometimes it's not that measurable and maybe it's not that objective. And sometimes you really need to find a way to make it happen. And this is where you have data. So for us, how did we start? I have to say that it is an ongoing process. It never started, it never stopped. So we need to keep developing, we need to keep finding the way. But for us, it was very important to understand who is our talent. Like my colleagues mentioned previously, it's a struggle, and every company currently looking for employees that the market knows that the lack of high quality employees is something that is really happening on our local markets as well. But for us, even the complexity of having 5 markets in the hub structure is something that brings on to this complexity even more. So what we did, first of all, we needed to understand the differences between countries, because when we say Croatia and Serbia, we all think it's basically the same country with, similar languages and similar mentality of people. We all like food, we all friendly and so on. But in the end, we need to understand the differences. And this is where the data comes in. And this is very important for us to understand where are the differences, why these differences happen, what is maybe the factors that attract candidates from one market in comparison to other markets, and of course to use it well. As Mattias mentioned, it's very important to be authentic and not to speak only about the positive aspects of the business. It's important to keep it honest, and of course maybe to see if there is something negative that you can work on, if there is something that you can change, that you can improve, you can maybe internally with your teams leverage on, and of course put your strengths in focus. In the end, it's important, like we mentioned, to have happy employees and to retain them, because if you attract them, you bring them to the company and they leave soon, you haven't done a good job, which for us is also a part of employer branding, not working only externally, but also internally with employees. And collecting data for us is very important to understand who applies for our company, why do they apply, what attracts them to the company, what are the benefits that we should maybe speak more about that we have within the company, but that we haven't shared with the public maybe as openly as we would like to. As well, for us, it is very important to show this. Maybe if I give you an example, you're buying a gift for a friend for a birthday. And if you know the person well, if you know the hobbies of a person, the characteristics of the person, the needs of the person, you will buy a good gift. It's the same with the employees. If you're looking for a talent, if you want to really attract the person, you need to be open and honest. But the better you know the person, the easier it will be maybe to present what is good about the company they could find themselves in. So this is something that we always try to do. We try to keep it simple, because in the end, you don't want to use some fancy words that nobody understands. You don't want to sound too professional, but still you need to be objective and use the data, which for us is a big help. And of course, it is very important in this part to use the data right, because you can have many data, you can collect the data, and then you're not really sure what to do with it. So it's very important to know when collecting data, what is the data that you need, what will help you, and what will be the actions that you will take based on the data that you collect. So this is maybe how we started, and of course it is a work in progress. So I'll be happy to share more with anybody interested, but to keep it short, maybe
Yeah.
this is for now.
You'll get your chance. I kind of told you that already, so yeah, we'll discuss it more thoroughly. But I like this. I feel what you said. I feel that companies sometimes, at least in Serbia, and Mattias and Gloria can tell us what they think. I think companies try to not try to, they over communicate sometimes. They just try to crunch everything into one article, one video, one blog or whatever. And sometimes that is not the good path to go down. So I don't know if you guys want to jump in on that one shortly, just to say your experience. Is that something that you see happening or not?
Should you or I, Gloria? I can start, and then maybe you can fill in if filling in the blanks, so to say. But actually, I agree. Sometimes companies tend to over communicate, and sometimes companies tend to sort of compete within the same premises as everyone. If they see a company saying something, they're like, "Oh, but we have that as well. We should also be communicating it." And the problem is that you can't be everywhere, right? And that's why you actually need the data to form the decisions. And I can see that. I think we have received a question about that.
Yep.
Like, you're talking
Okay.
about data and what about gut feeling, right? And sometimes, to have a gut feeling, you need to have a formed decision, right? Okay, I feel that this is right, but then you need all the different sort of perspectives and aspects of things. And that's why companies tend to over communicate, because they don't have the data to back their gut feeling and the decisions to actually, but we should go with this because the data says so. And I think that companies should be more focused in their communication, quality over quantity, so to say.
Yeah, that was a question from our audience. Mariana asked that question, and thank you for that one. We have another one here as well. But before we read that one, Gloria, would you like to add something to Mattias' response?
Yes, if I may, I think that everything that Mattias said is correct, as well as Ines. The idea of gut feeling is nice, is a good sensation, but data gives you a higher chance of success because it's based on probability, which doesn't take anything away from gut feeling, but you need somehow to measure and streamline competences and activities based on something that you can measure, assess, and then strategize on another time. Gut feeling is just something a bit blurry in a way, and can be a one-person show without actually involving the whole community. It may be right, but the probabilities generally are lower with respect to a strategy that it is based on the data.
Makes sense. Yeah, I would agree as well. Seeing what companies tend to do in Serbia. We have thank you, guys, for this. We have another question. I know we have our agenda, but I think we should give answers to our audience, and I encourage everyone to ask questions if they have any. We have a question. What are the 3 key analytics points we should focus on when starting to implement this data employer branding journey? Whoever wants to give their point of view, maybe Ines, you can, or Gloria, I see you unmuted. Whoever, you can all jump in on this one.
Was it too fast, Ines? Do you want to go first?
Don't worry. You can, of course.
Sorry, just because this is
right,
really a subject that is the most interesting to me. First of all, I would say that the most important thing is to understand who the target is. Who are we talking to? Who do we need to attract? What are the preferences? What are the content that they want to hear about? What are their perception of the world? Because sometimes it is different with respect to what it is that we're communicating. So the first and most important thing I would say is understanding the talent. The second important thing is nurture it by communicating. So build a relationship. It doesn't make any sense to just post once or do an internal survey once. You need to create engagement. To understand people, you need to have a constant communication with them. And I would say that the third is put in place KPIs that allow you to track your activities. How is your turnover? How is your engagement? You're working on social media. How is your click-through rate? So put in place measures that helps you understand whether you're going into the right direction, and if not, adjust, because there's always room for adjustment. And you mentioned Isidora earlier, they're not so successful stories. All of the stories have that possibility to be better or misinterpreted. The idea here is exactly to use the data to adjust where needed and give some time also to the success to come. I hope that I managed to reply to Mariana's question. And Ines, if you want to add something.
Yeah, thank you. I would like to hear from Ines. If when you started this journey, if you can share what were the 3 key analytics that you guys knew this is what we have to go over and this is what we need to find out.
Of course. I think it overlaps with what Gloria said. So for us, it was as well learning about internal needs. So what do our current employees value about the company? What is something that they recognize as something that attracted them to the company in the first place? As well, their satisfaction rates, and of course, everything related to company projects that we are doing, some CSR activities or diversity activities, or anything that's on top of their everyday business that can be used as an employer branding factor, meaning that they want to share with others, with their friends, with their family, and so on. As well, it was understanding the market. So what is the current situation in the market? How does the general talent in the market look like? What are the characteristics? What are the needs? And what do they expect from companies? Because we know that there is a lot going on in the startup world, and people going into freelancing and working in different types of companies. So we are still a corporation and a serious one. So what we as corporation can offer to them that would be attractive to them. And as well, how to create a good EVP later on, how to communicate it. So what is something that we need to maybe emphasize later on in communication? So these would be the 3 points, maybe focusing on internally on finding out what drives your own employees currently, what is the situation in the market and what the market has to offer in terms of talent, and maybe to target the top players for you, maybe the companies that you can headhunt from, or maybe unemployed that are interesting to you, or maybe the profiles or the characteristics that are interesting to you in terms of employment. And the third one is, of course, understanding how to communicate better what you have. So using the data to maybe do some employer perception studies, or some studies that can help you to understand better how you sit in the market, what is perception of others on the market of your company, and of course communicating it better to the wider audience.
I see we're all nodding. I would agree with that as well. Just one thing that I tend to see working with companies in Serbia that I would just like to add is one of a few mistakes they make quite often, I would say, is that they do one or the other. So either internal or external, or they stretch it over 2 or 3 years, and the labor market changes so quickly that by the time they're done, the data they have is old and they can't use it. So I think we can all agree that our message would be to do both all the time, and try to kind of synchronize them and do them ideally, I would say, in the same quarter, if not even the same month. But other than that, I would agree as well. And thank you, Ines, for that one. Now, when this is one of my favorite topics when I mention mistakes. Mattias, what would you say are some of the most common do's and don'ts, or good practices or bad practices that you see companies doing, and something that you want to see them stop doing or start doing more?
It's interesting because much of those topics have we covered in one way or another in these discussions. But to mention a few, like messaging is very important. What is communicated, what is not communicated, and sometimes we have seen we usually use this example of global banks, for instance. We have this slide which we show in presentations, where all the banks have the same sort of slogan with the actual same stock photo in the background, which is like they're showcasing that their bank is a world of opportunities. But coming from the outside, I mean, what does that really mean? I mean, sure, the company is global. It could offer you maybe an international career, but what is a world of opportunities? It's like taking a kid to the candy store, right? I mean, it could mean everything. And secondly, the inside out thinking. We briefly spoke about it right now, that it's important to take the inside perspective as well as the external perspective. But sometimes companies tend to focus on the internally, sort of like an inside out approach. But it's also a reality out there that might not conjure with sort of the internal reality. So when companies are crafting their EVPs, it's very important that, okay, we believe this is sort of our culture and this is what our company stands for. But is it really aligned with what the outside perception is? And should we work towards gaining the sort of external perspective in this way? Or should we be more sort of flexible in our approach and actually, okay, this is how we are perceived? And the third one that I think is very, very important that companies tend to forget, and that is employee advocacy, that your employees are your most valuable assets. They are your best marketeers, and they are sort of the best people to actually give you the best employer branding efforts externally, because people tend to like to talk to each other. And work is usually a common topic in whatever situation you're in, whether it's family, friends, or actually at work. Meaning that if you can foster a culture where people actually love to go to the job, they will for sure speak about the company. So when you have a set of values for your employee value proposition, make sure that they stick within the organization, so that people actually live the brand, so to say. And we can see that among our world's most attractive employers, for instance, that they are very, very good in getting people to live their brand. And finally, I just want to say, and we have touched upon that as well, and that we should take decisions together with data. And I think Gloria put it very eloquently, why we should do that. Because, data is probability. And even though the data could be potentially wrong, it gives us a very good indication, about the direction and what people actually want and need in an employer.
And then we have another question that I think maybe we can kind of continue in this direction before we kind of wrap this panel discussion up. Maybe Gloria, you could tell us what you think about this one. How to deal with data in small companies up to 20 people? Is it necessary at all? That's our question.
Yes. It is reasonable. Like I've talked about examples of really big companies, not even medium. Ines is part of L'Oreal, which is of course a big company. It's important to remember that we have different sizes, and not the same approach doesn't fit all. I still believe that data is important even in small to medium companies. The approaches might differ. Meaning that I'm assuming, but this is just an assumption, I don't know the case specifically, that a small company might not need to hire, let's say, 20, 50, 100 people per year, which is exactly the nature of the size of the company we're talking about. So maybe a structure in which gathering external data and the creation of content in a much more structured way might not provide the many advantages of a bigger company. This being said, though, the problem with smaller companies is retention. So we can use data in the retention part, especially in the smaller companies, because if someone leaves there, the gap that it leaves the hole is way bigger. So we still need to include, I'm not saying that it needs to be done through a specific internal survey, but there needs to be a moment where you build the culture of the company together. And this will also help outside, meaning that on the one hand, word of mouth is still the most powerful marketing tool that we have. So if your employees are happy, they will talk about the company in a happier and in a much more engaging way. And on the second hand, also in terms of the whole recruitment in a smaller company is generally, you have the chance to touch upon many people, not just five people that are interviewing you, maybe of the same department. So how important the culture is needs to be able to be transmitted by all of the people employed in the company. So I would say different approach, but data is still important, at least to have a framework, like to put into words what it is that you are.
Makes sense. Before we only have time for one last question. I would just like to tell you, people in the audience, I see there's so many questions about this, and they keep coming. InfoStud has been partner with Universum for 3 years now, and we carry an employer branding academy. If you would like to attend, just reach out, and this is a place where you can learn more about everything that we've discussed today. For one last question, as I would like to say, I would like to hear from Ines. So we've covered the global trends and what's going on in Serbia a bit, but one question that we continue to receive is how do I do this locally, or where my headquarters is somewhere else, and L'Oreal is everywhere. So what would you say are the biggest differences that you see in labor market in Serbia versus Croatia and so on, if any?
Of course. Well, I have to say, when it comes to employer branding, that we have to stick to that one size does not fit all. You need to adapt it locally. You need to find what matters for the local audience and what is the difference between some global story and the headquarter vision and the local needs, because there's pretty much every time a difference, at least sometimes not big difference, but still it's a difference. So I would say locally in Serbia, of course, we all live in the conditions where maybe even the work standard is not the same as maybe Western Europe, when we have different work opportunities when it comes to headquarters of the companies being based in different countries across regions. So there are many differences when it comes to some global context. However, it is very important, of course, to keep it authentic and to see how the company functions locally, because as it's the same with the needs, it is the management of the company and the employees that are the majority local. So again, your workforce is in-house local, so you use the power of your employees as well to find out more about them. And it is a good starting point to understand how locally you function and what are your needs, and of course start from there. So for me, I would say that there are differences, but again, we all share this struggle for talent. It is something that is very universal. So wherever you are and whichever country you're speaking about, it's always we are lacking talent. We do not have many quality people, so it's always the same. It is just finding the way how to attract the talent and how to define the talent for you. Because what is talent for us maybe is not a talent for some other company, and maybe you will not be looking for the same competencies, for the same cultural fit for your company, rather than we are at L'Oreal. So it is always something to think about, and I really advise you to educate yourself as well, because this is a fast-moving field. Employer branding is developing so fast, and it is interdisciplinary. You learn a little bit about marketing, about PR, about logistics, about psychology, about economics. So it's all intertwined somehow, and it's really important to you as a professional need to be educated in order to recognize what do your employees need, and of course to transfer it later on into a strong EVP and an employer branding strategy in the end. So there are differences, and there are a lot of differences, but still we all share the same struggles, and sometimes it's really comforting to hear that.
Yeah, well, thank you. I could only underline and agree with everything you said. I see you, Peter. I see you. Give me just 10 seconds to say thank you to everyone. Like I said, we could discuss this for hours, and I hope we will have the opportunity in 2023. Thank you, Ines, Gloria, and Mattias for this discussion, and everyone who wants to hear more from any of us, just feel free to reach out.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Listen, again, another one of those sessions that just could carry on, but unfortunately because of time we can't do that. But again, remember, everything you don't, people watching now, but those of you maybe that are still going to buy, still within their community, within their network, still want to get tickets, everything here on this session is going to be replayed. Well, it could be replayed over and over again when it's on demand in about a week or so's time. So I'm looking forward to watching this again, not watching myself again, but hearing from you again, some of the things that I missed, and just to recap on some of the things that were outstanding in what you were saying. Listen, thank you so much. Again, if you're curious, you'd like to know more, please do reach out to our panelists here, and I'm sure they'll be happy to again take that conversation, that connection, and then conversation forward. Other than that, in the meantime, thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.